What's good, fight fans? This is Keenan Demetrios, and we're back at it again with another episode of Next Gen Combat Sports TV. So, man, oh man, oh man. This week we got the highly anticipated, the supposed fight of the century, the new Sugar Ray Leonard versus Tommy Hearns, aka Marvin Hagler versus Sugar Ray Leonard, but this was nothing like that at all. And the fight I'm referring to, as many of y'all know, is the Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence. And this fight, I think I can go ahead and say, some people thought so, but this fight went nothing like how many expected. It was billed as a 50-50 fight between the two best welterweights of this generation, supposedly. And it was, to put it short, it was just a massacre. A slaughter, if you will, a one-sided beatdown, and that was on behalf of Errol Spence Jr. So, in terms of how the fight went, Terence Crawford, he got out to a pretty good start. He wasn't doing too much, but I thought this fight he was a lot more defensively responsible than I have seen him in the past, and some people spoke on it as well. And I think the reason for that was a lot of his past fights, they're kind of like were guys that he, in his mind, he probably knew he was a lot better than, so he could kind of go in there and take a little bit more risk and, you know, kind of get into more firefights. But this fight, and I'm going to go ahead and say, me personally, out of all the fights I've seen in Terence Crawford, I think this was the best Terence Crawford I've ever seen. And that's kind of attributed to his experience that he's had in the past. And I talked to my grandpa about it. I felt like Terence Crawford, he's kind of fought different aspects of Errol Spence's game. You know, he's fought the pressure fighters. You know, he's fought the guys who want to go to the body. He's fought the guys who want to come forward. You know, he's fought some high volume guys. But Errol Spence seemed to kind of be like that all in one. So coming into this fight, he really did have a lot of experience. You know, now he's 40-0. Including the win that he had against Errol Spence, and he showed all of that experience. One thing that surprised me the most about this fight was the fact that he came out southpaw. Honestly, I felt like the way for him to take away Errol Spence's jab, which is usually his most important weapon, because everything is set up off of Errol Spence Jr.'s jab. Once he gets his jab going and he kind of gets that momentum coming forward, then he kind of starts to get in your space and unleash his body shots and things of that sort. But I thought that he would have to take away the jab going into the orthodox stance. But to my surprise, he went southpaw, just like Errol Spence. And one thing that initially got my attention off rip was how quick his jab was and how on time it was. Like in every exchange, it just seemed like he was beating Errol Spence to the point. Errol, he really couldn't find any type of rhythm. He couldn't find any type of entry point. And really, I would say I kind of gave Errol Spence the first round, but it was just off activity. But you know, with Terence Crawford, they say that's kind of that's the time frame in which he's downloaded the information. So in that first round, you know, Errol Spence, he was doing good. But once that second round started and Terence Crawford, he was using lateral movement, but it wasn't nothing crazy. He wasn't really skating around the ring as much. And that was to my detriment of my prediction. I felt like Errol Spence would have been able to apply a lot more pressure in the initial stages to get Terence Crawford on his bike. Not saying that he would just be walking him down, but I feel like Terence Crawford would have had to use more movement than he was. But to my surprise, he was actually standing his ground a lot. And one thing that really started fucking Spence up early was those feints. Because one thing about Errol Spence is he usually has a very good high guard, and he usually, you know, snaps his jab out and get it right back, snaps his jab out and use that pressure. But once he started getting those feints, he was kind of flinching and sticking his hands out. And that was kind of showing Terence Crawford what his reaction would be to certain punches he would throw out. And once he started getting those hands out of position, Terence Crawford, he was just picking them apart, and it was really sad. Like, even, and one thing I looked at and took into consideration as well was that first knockdown. Like, it kind of reminded me of the knockdown that Tank got on Ryan Garcia, but the difference with Ryan Garcia was he had already got his first career knockdown against Luke Campbell. So I felt like since he had got that first knockdown, even when he got knocked down against Tank, he definitely changed up. He wasn't as aggressive, and you can kind of tell he was in his head more. But really, up until he got knocked out with the body shot, he was still very competitive in the fight. It was pretty much a back and forth fight besides that knockdown. But Errol Spence, I really felt like once he got knocked down with that jab, and it was like a 2-1, and I seen the replay, he didn't even hit him with the first shot, but he was just out of position, and he hit him and he dropped him. But it's like after that, I felt like he was just kind of mentally, he was just second guessing everything he was doing. And the way Errol Spence is, he really got to get into that rhythm where he's going downhill, where he's using his physicality, where he's using his strength. And that was another big surprise. He could not move Terence Crawford like myself and I think many others anticipated. When I seen them like body up with each other, and when I seen Crawford give him that, and that backed him up off of him, I said, oh, yeah, this not about to go well for him, because you could just see like the way Errol Spence is used to doing his opponents. Whenever he gets into their chest, he can kind of body up on them, and he can use his leverage and his weight to kind of get them off balance, so where he can kind of let his shots off that he won't. But that wasn't it just wasn't it. And in Crawford, he did tie up sometimes, but even when he tied up to the point to where he was controlling his arms, he was controlling his head, and he was getting the position he wanted, to where Spence really couldn't do anything he wanted as well. And back to what I was saying about the jab, that jab was a mean jab. It wasn't no range finding jab. It wasn't no probing jab. It wasn't a pawn jab. I'm talking about when he was hitting him with that jab, you could tell they was hurting. I think the jab did more damage than all the other punches, to be honest. And you could tell, I think by round 3 or 4, he was showing blood in his mouth, blood in his nose. And then that's when he started getting kind of more hesitant as well. And also one thing that I thought about before the fight, but I didn't think it would play as important as a role, because I felt like it would have been an orthodox fight. But Errol Spence doesn't really have a good lead left hook. Like once he gets you where he wants you at, and he kind of got you cornered, and he kind of got you in front of him, then he can kind of get leverage and put his body into his hooks. And usually he want to do it to the body anyway, but he doesn't have like a standard range, like just a snapping hook that he can just hit you like a check. He don't really got a good check hook, but Crawford does. And anytime he got on the inside, Crawford was punishing him with that lead right hook, to the point to where you could really tell in his mind and in his body language, he didn't want to be close on the inside, because anytime he would, relax, or anytime he would try to get to a better position, Crawford was just punishing him. So yeah, it was a pretty rough night for him, and I don't think anybody expected it to go that way. But I don't think that I don't think that Errol Spence isn't a good fighter. I don't think he was a hype job. And then even people that saying that, oh, he was a hype job with this, that, like, you're taking away from how good Crawford is. Like, Crawford showed with that performance that he took out one of the best, most, dominant welterweights in this era, and he just made light work of him. So, in terms of that, we can just look at Terence Crawford and we can just appreciate how great he is. Honestly, like, I'm a Inoue fan, and I had Inoue #1, and I honestly felt like it would have been very hard for someone to for either one of them to have a performance to catapult them over to the #1 spot for me. But just to see that demolition job he put on on Errol Spence, that was definitely #1 pound for pound. And honestly, when I was watching it, it felt like he never really was even exerting himself. Like, he was just doing all the basic things, and it just seemed like there was nothing that Errol Spence could do that he wasn't already aware of, and that he wasn't prepared for. And on the other end, Errol Spence, he just looked like he was just very ill prepared, or he just probably expected a totally different game plan. He probably underestimated his strength. He probably underestimated his speed and timing. And like I said, I thought the footwork on Terence Crawford's end would play a very important role, but it was very subtle footwork. It wasn't like he was, moving side to side, bouncing around. He was just very methodically getting himself into position, and just getting himself into places where he could counter effectively, and where he could, defend himself. And that's what I was saying earlier. Like, this was some of the best defense I've seen from Terence Crawford as well. Hands up, very defensively responsible. Attacked at range, attacked at points, and even at some points he was pushing Errol Spence back. So yeah, we'll see where he goes from here. I think that I do not think that they should have a rematch. I hate to say it. I mean, like, that's an testament to, the champion that Errol Spence is, and, the heart of a warrior that he has. But after that performance, I just don't see. I don't. If they fought 10 times, I think Terence Crawford would beat him 10 times. And I mean, not to say I won't watch the rematch, but at the same time, if he does do the rematch, I feel like he should take a fight in between and maybe try to get the fight sometime next spring or so, and probably do it at 154. Because I'm not trying to give him any excuse or anything, but we all know how long they've both been at the 147 weight limit. So I think it would be very beneficial for both fighters to have that rematch at 154 and maybe see what happened. But in any case, that was just my breakdown. I'll probably do some more videos maybe on the Jake Paul fight this weekend, even though it's like the influencer stuff. But that's boxing too, that brings in a new crowd. But if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the fight. Let me know who you picked, if you think it was being a one-sided demolition job or not. And yeah, so thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.